Today I'm going to be doing a video on how to get a baby to sleep. These are just some of the things that worked for us, and I remember those first few weeks, which really are the toughest, desperate to find a way to soothe her and to get her to go to sleep more easily. If you're watching this in the wee hours of the morning, you're just desperate for some other ideas, I hope some of these will help. So let's get into the video. When they come out of the womb, it's a huge shock to them, and they're not used to all this space, they're not used to silence because they're used to having noise all the time in the womb. If you think they've got your heartbeat, your blood pumping through, the noises from the outside world, the movement. So this idea of having all this space around them is kind of terrifying. If you compare a baby, other newborn mammals, most of them either can swim straight away, crawl, walk very quickly. Babies are, I think, the only mammals that are entirely reliant on their parents for keeping them alive. Ideally, a baby would be in the womb for another 3 months if we could carry them, but we can't. So you've got to think of it in that way. So everything you do should be towards making them feel kind of like they're still in the womb. So I hope some of these tips are going to help. You can buy swaddling blankets. I personally wouldn't bother spending the money unless you've already got one and you've been gifted it, because they grow out of these really quickly anyway. But you can make your own swaddling blanket from any kind of blanket you have. I'm going to put a link to a really good swaddling video I found on YouTube that I would highly recommend. It makes them feel safe and it makes them feel secure. We started swaddling, I think, about 2 weeks after she was born, and we were so desperate for sleep by this point. We were prepared to kind of try anything, and I cannot tell you, it was amazing. She did struggle a bit to begin with and she was frustrated, and then eventually she just fell asleep, and we sort of spent half an hour looking at each other going, oh, did we actually get her to go to sleep? So swaddling's great. Rocking or swaying. If you think about how much movement your baby is used to being inside of you prior to being born, you're walking around, you may have been doing exercise up until the birth or close to, you're in a car, well, you can imagine it's swimming if you've been doing that. So they are used to being moved around a lot. Babies want gentle, constant swaying motions. Just think about how you would feel if you were in a hammock, and it would just be lovely being all kind of wrapped up warm and gently swayed, and this helps them fall asleep. Now I believe you can create slings just from fabric. Again, I'll look for a good YouTube video on that and I will put that in the description box below. I bought a Hannah sling. I will again put that in the description box. It meant I could get housework done, it meant I could do chores, it meant I could go out for a stroll. There are some really good videos again online on how to put these on, which sometimes is a lot easier when you're really tired and you don't have time to read instructions and you've got a baby crying. So I found a really good tutorial, which again I will post in the description bar, and I hope you have a lot of success with this. I got the Hannah, I bought it on Amazon. I think it was less than £30. I've got a feeling it was £25, so not too expensive, but there are lots of other similar brands out there. So I wish I had discovered this earlier. I will post a comment in the description bar of a really good app that I found, and it's free. So nice to actually have something for your baby that you don't have to spend money on. And it's called the Deep Sleep app, and it's got a whole array of sounds that you can choose from an air filter, a fan, someone going shh, which I found amazing, and I use that all the time.
Tumble dryer, hair dryer, vacuum cleaner, driving in the rain, foghorns, birds, crickets.
You get it. The great thing about this app is I believe it goes on for an hour and a half, which is amazing. My next tip is just having general noise on in the house. Now, this can both help soothe your baby and help them sleep, but it's also really good sort of training for going forwards. A lot of people tiptoe around babies. Again, I'll go back to what I said before, which is babies are used to sound. The one thing they are not used to is silence, and that freaks them out. As they get older, like we're getting to the 3-month mark, They're very aware of stimulus, so you have to be more careful about sound, but when they're a newborn baby, the great thing is have the TV on, have the radio. On quite a few occasions, stroking her head from the back of her head all the way forwards and slightly grazing her nose and down, and repeating this helped her to close her eyes and helped her go to sleep. And it's all rhythmical, and it's a form of sort of hypnotism. So if you're interested in that, there's a really great video again on YouTube, which I will post a link to in the description box. So it covers things like tapping, swaying, forms of hypnotism. Something you'll find is tapping your baby's bottom in a consistent rhythmical way also helps send them off to sleep, and that really worked for me, and it still works for me now. I think again it's a bit to do with it being semi-hypnotic and continuous, so they start focusing on the tapping and not on anything else around them. And also I think it's going back to the heartbeat and the fact that they're actually used to having something continuous sound-wise going on, like on a loop. So I did find that really helped. She's woken up. So singing, I found singing lullabies, anything you can think of, if you can even remember the lyrics. I couldn't. I seem to have forgotten all of that after pregnancy, but singing to your baby will reassure her or him, help to soothe them, and hopefully help them sleep as well. The tip that I would suggest is if you've got a really soft squidgy cushion, I actually popped her on the sofa in the living room with me, and I found that something about the squid, like really soft, you know, the kind of cushion that you'd fall back into and sink into, that kind of cushion. I had one of those on my sofa, and I just thought I'd try it one day, and I popped her on there with one side leaning towards the sofa, so that she was sort of rolling in that direction rather than rolling off, and she absolutely loved it, and she fell asleep quite often on that. So obviously it's something you need to be with her all the time, or him, monitoring them. You can't leave a baby on a sofa, and you know there's always a chance they could roll over and cover their nose and their mouth and everything, so you do need to monitor them. But if you're sitting on a sofa watching TV or reading or relaxing, whatever, I'd try out putting them on a soft cushion. I was gifted a Sleepyhead. I'd read up about them before having her, and I was umming and ahhing about buying one. They are quite expensive. There are alternatives out there to buy, I've seen on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description for where you can buy them. Worth every penny. As soon as we bought the Sleepyhead, she would sleep in her cot. I could take it anywhere with me. She would sleep on the sofa, she would sleep at my parents' house, my in-laws, and I used it right up until a couple of weeks ago because she's had some problems with her hips, so she can't be in it anymore. But I know you can get larger sizes. It was amazing. Now the reason I didn't get it initially was because so much advice out there says don't have anything in the cot other than the baby and the blanket, because of worries with cot death and suffocation and things like that. But the way that the Sleepyhead is designed means that the fabric is breathable, so if they are up against it like this, that they still can breathe. And also the shape of it is very much like being in the womb. I would highly recommend it. It meant that we could actually have sleep. It changed our lives overnight having it. That's not to say your baby's not still going to wake up or you're not going to be feeding every couple of hours, because when they're new that's just how it is. But if it means that when you put them down they can go to sleep quite quickly, you know, we soon went from having like an hour's unbroken sleep a night to 3 or 4, and you will know as a new parent that just the idea of 4 hours sleep would be absolutely amazing. You feel like a new person and you can function and life starts to get a bit more normal again. So Sleepyhead would be my top tip for helping your baby sleep. So I would highly recommend that in the evenings when you're doing your last feed with your breastfeeding or bottle feeding, that you turn down all the lights, that you start to encourage your baby to decipher the difference between day and night. Now, a lot of the books will say actually it's not until they're about 3 months old that they really can get a sense of day and night, but what I found it helped was it was giving her a cue that this is now time to sleep, this is now time to feed, this is the last feed of the day. It helped me start to relax as well, and also I would deliberately not engage with her, so I wouldn't coo or smile at her or talk to her. I'd sit there and I would look away, and I really found that helped because of course she's very excited to see me, and you know, it's sort of a sociable time eating, so it helped get her sleepy in preparation for putting her down for bed, and that really worked, and we still do that now. So the next tip I'm going to suggest is a bit controversial. There are people that are really pro pacifiers, or dummies as we call them in the UK, and there are people that are really against it. So if you're really against it, then fast forward. I had bought a couple of dummies as a backup. We didn't start using them until I think she was 5 weeks old, 5 or 6 weeks old, but it was the best thing ever. The best thing ever. Now my advice would be, don't use the dummy all day long, don't just put it in for the sake of putting it in. We only put it in after we had tried everything else to soothe her. She'd been burped, she'd been fed, she'd been cooed, she'd been swayed, she'd been sung to, white noise, and you just get to the point where you cannot function without sleep, and unless you've got support and family around you who might be able to take the baby off you for a couple of hours, you really need sleep by this point. So there are orthopedic pacifiers and dummies out there now which supposedly sort of avoid your child having issues with their teething in their mouth and, you know, teeth and all that kind of stuff. I thought it was fantastic. My mum had used dummies for both my sister and I. Neither of us ever had braces or issues with our teeth. In fact, we probably have some of the best teeth out of the people we know. So I think it's a bit of a myth, some of the things that are said, but obviously it's a personal choice by you. But the Sleepyhead and the dummy have been the best thing, and we still use that. But, you know, use it as and when you really need to, rather than getting them too reliant on having it all the time. And also you need to be careful that you're not missing signals that your baby might be giving you that they're hungry. So I would only use it after you know you've fed them and they're ready for sleep. Otherwise you might miss them rooting, you know, sticking their tongue out, which is one of the things they do, particularly when they're newborns, to let you know that they're hungry. Another tip is room temperature. You probably would have read up about this in the parent books that you would have bought hopefully before you had your baby, or that you're reading now. Making sure that the temperature is not too cold and not too hot, that's appropriate for the climate that you live in, is really important. So we bought Philips Avent room temperature. It also, thermometer, sorry, it also pairs up as a bath thermometer, which is great. So you're not having to have one thing in the bathroom, one thing in the bedroom. You can just grab it and you can take it with you wherever you go, which is great if you're staying with family or friends. I found it really useful, and it's worth to continue checking it, because throughout the seasons, especially as we got into winter, our room was getting colder and colder. I found that she tends to like being in the warmer sort of range that you're allowed to have babies in, especially in winter. So keep an eye on that. That can have a big impact on whether she'll sleep. I found she would sleep a lot more easily in the lounge than she would in the bedroom, and when I checked, I didn't think to check the temperature because I had the thermometer in our bedroom all the time. I brought it in and realised that the lounge was a couple of degrees higher, and so I ended up upping the radiator, making the bedroom warmer, and then I had no problems with her going down.
Check out part 2 to this video for more great tips on how to get your baby to sleep.